$32 billion disappeared in 72 hours. No hack, no market crash. Just customers' money, quietly moved and already gone. His name was Sam Bankman-Fried. Everyone called him SBF. He built FTX, the second largest crypto exchange in the world. In November 2022, it was gone in 72 hours. SBF didn't look like a billionaire. He wore cargo shorts to board meetings. He slept on a beanbag in the office. He drove a beat-up Toyota Corolla. His hair was a mess. His desk was covered in monitors. He looked like a grad student who forgot to go home. And he talked constantly about giving everything away. Effective altruism, he called it. The idea that if you made enough money, you could fix the world. Malaria, climate change, pandemic prevention. SBF said he was going to donate everything, every dollar he made. It worked. Not the altruism part, the image part. The press loved him. Forbes put him on the cover. Time magazine named him one of the most influential people in the world. Politicians flew to the Bahamas to meet with him. He donated over $40 million to political campaigns. FTX raised money from some of the biggest names in venture capital: Sequoia, SoftBank, Temasek, Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan. At its peak, FTX was valued at $32 billion. He testified before Congress twice. He sat in those hearings and talked about responsible regulation. He shook hands with senators. He had dinner with regulators. He was the guy who was going to make crypto safe. Everyone trusted him because he didn't look like someone who was lying. He looked like someone who was too busy saving the world to bother. And in hindsight, that trust wasn't built on information. It was built on appearance. The system was already unstable. The tweet just made everyone look at it at the same time. On November 2nd, 2022, CoinDesk published a report. It wasn't a bombshell headline. It was a balance sheet. Alameda Research, FTX's sister trading firm, also run by SBF, had a problem. Customer deposits weren't sitting in FTX. They were being used somewhere else. And what backed them wasn't cash. It was a token FTX itself created. That token was called FTT, and Alameda was sitting on billions of it. 4 days later, Binance CEO CZ posted one tweet. He was selling all of Binance's FTT holdings. No explanation, just selling. FTT started dropping. Users started asking questions. Then they started withdrawing. Withdrawals surge. Liquidity vanishes. FTX halts withdrawals. Alameda's balance sheet unravels. SBF tweets, "Assets are fine." They weren't fine. Here's what had actually been happening for years. FTX was taking customer deposits, money that users thought was sitting safely in their accounts, and moving it to Alameda Research. Alameda was using that money to make trades, leveraged bets on crypto assets. Some worked, a lot didn't. By the time the CoinDesk report dropped, there was an $8 billion hole in FTX's books. $8 billion of customer money gone. Not hacked, not stolen in one night. Quietly moved over time with no one watching. Because in systems like this, collapse doesn't look like failure. It looks like normal behavior until it doesn't. Binance stepped in, briefly. CZ said he'd consider buying FTX to bail it out. Due diligence took less than 24 hours. Then he walked away. There was no moment where it failed. Only the moment people realized it already had. There was no backup plan, no reserve fund, no liquidity backstop. no insurance. The system didn't collapse. It was never what it claimed to be. While customers were locked out, SBF kept tweeting everything was fine. FTX is fine. Assets are fine. We're working on solutions. I'm committed to doing right by users. On-chain data told a different story. Hundreds of millions in assets were moving out of wallets connected to FTX. Blockchain trackers flagged unusual transfers in real time. Anyone who knew where to look could see it happening. Internal messages were leaking to reporters. Senior executives had already left the building. The Bahamas penthouse, where SBF and his inner circle had been living, was going quiet. And still, he posted. Still managed the narrative. Still told the world he had a plan. It didn't take long. There was no recovery phase, only escalation. From here, everything moved faster than anyone could respond. November 6th, CoinDesk report drops. CZ tweets, FTT starts falling. Users begin Googling how to withdraw from FTX. At this point, it wasn't a crisis yet. It was still being treated like a temporary issue. November 7th, FTT drops 25% in a single day. Withdrawal requests start accelerating. FTX's support team is overwhelmed. SBF posts on Twitter, FTX is fine. Assets are fine. November 8th, FTX halts all withdrawals. Over $6 billion in withdrawal requests. Frozen. Users can see their balance, they just can't touch it. Binance announces it's considering an acquisition. The crypto market starts to panic. This was the moment everyone realized there was no buyer left. At this point, it was no longer about saving FTX. It was about containing the damage. November 9th. Binance opens FTX's books. They look inside for less than 24 hours. Then they walk away. Statement: the issues are beyond our ability to help. No buyer, no bailout, no floor. November 10th. SBF is still posting, still negotiating, still looking for a way out. Behind the scenes, prosecutors are already moving. November 11th. FTX files for bankruptcy. SBF resigns as CEO. John Ray, the man who unwound Enron, takes over. His first statement? In 40 years of legal work, he has never seen anything like this. Within 72 hours, withdrawals stopped. Within days, a $32 billion valuation was gone. SBF flew to Washington one last time, testified before Congress, answered questions about what went wrong, then flew back to the Bahamas. In the weeks that followed, his inner circle started talking. Caroline Ellison, who ran Alameda and was SBF's ex-girlfriend, cooperated. Ryan Salame, Nishad Singh, Gary Wang. One by one, the people closest to him made deals with prosecutors. In December 2022, SBF was arrested at his apartment in Nassau. The Bahamian authorities took him in at the request of the United States. He was extradited within weeks. He spent months preparing his defense. He gave interviews. He went on podcasts. He posted on Substack. He said it was all a mistake, an accounting error, bad risk management. He said he never meant to hurt anyone. October 2023. The trial lasted 4 weeks. 7 counts of fraud and conspiracy. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all 7. March 2024. Judge Lewis Kaplan sentenced him to 25 years in federal prison. Prosecutors had asked for 40 to 50 years. SBF's lawyers had asked for 5. He got 25. He was 32 years old. Here is what actually happened. SBF didn't steal $8 billion the way you'd expect. There was no single moment he decided to take the money, no vault he cracked, no account he drained overnight. He built a system where the lines between FTX and Alameda were invisible. Customer deposits flowed in. Alameda used them. FTT made it look like there was collateral, and as long as no one looked too closely, it worked. For years, it worked. The system was held together by trust, not by assets, not by reserves, not by audits. FTX's auditor was a two-person firm in a strip mall, by the belief that SBF was one of the good ones. He had the right credentials: MIT, Wall Street trading background. He spoke the language of regulators. He donated to the right causes. He was the face crypto needed: legitimate, responsible, boring. When CZ tweeted, that belief cracked. And once it cracked, there was nothing underneath it. He had lawyers, investors, and a PR machine. Most users couldn't even withdraw. The question was never whether FTX was solvent. The question was, what happens when enough people try to leave at the same time? In November 2022, we got the answer. And this is the part people usually miss. Not the fraud, but how normal it looked while it was happening. $32 billion. 72 hours. One tweet. The theft wasn't invisible because it was hidden. It was invisible because everyone chose to believe it wasn't there.
Breaking news: the global markets are crashing. Officials warn of incoming recession. Subscribe for system breakdown stories.